So this church is the Church of the Holy Sepulchre. All I know is there was a heavy metal band that sounded like this called Sepulchre when I was in high school. Anyway, this is a very important place because they believe that this is where Jesus was died, and then also where he was resurrected. Churches like this are important because they show how religions impact the landscape, how they impact the physical geography of a place. When people first settled in the United States, one of the first things they needed was a church. And then the rest of the town was kind of set up around that church, right? So we'll talk, I guess we could talk a little bit more about the origins of Christianity, basic belief systems. They believe that, there's one God, that Jesus was the Son of God, and that he died for our sins, and that he came back to life, and he was risen again. And that's what Christians believe, okay? All right.
Okay, so what we see is a series of slides basically talking about how you're going to find temples, cathedrals, important buildings at holy sites for the particular religion. And here you can see the Mosque of the Prophet Medina in Saudi Arabia. It's the burial place of Muhammad. You guys know about Mecca, and then the Dome of the Rock in Jerusalem is important, where Muhammad ascended to heaven. So they've got some big ones, and throughout the region there are other stories, and our kids from Mexico get that with Catholicism. There's saint this, saint that, and there's holy sites for things that happen. So the older the religion is, the more of these you're going to get. Here they show the temple where Buddha attained enlightenment. And one thing that struck me when you look at the map of India, where Buddha was, and all of the things he did, there was a sermon on Deer Mountain, okay? There was a supper where he, had all of his followers, where he died and was reincarnated 3 days later, all right? Or rose up 3 days later. I'm looking at this going, whoa! The one thing that's different though is there's one spot where he tamed wild elephants. All right, I'm like, well, my Savior walked on water, okay? He didn't have any elephants to attain. But yeah, so where we have, stories about great things that happen within the religion, followers will end up building a temple or a cathedral, something like that in that place. Here you can see this is from a Hindu temple in Nepal, all right? And architecture is going to reflect the area. Like our Buddhist church here in Lodi looks Japanese, but if you go to Buddhist temples in Stockton, they look more Cambodian or Thai, and it all depends on the people and where they came from. Our churches in Christianity, we're used to churches with steep roofs. A lot of our churches came from Northern Europe, and the people needed steep roofs for a lot of rain and a lot of snow. Then you'll notice things like the Greek Orthodox Church in Stockton. It's a dome. Well, that's from the Mediterranean, and that was the Roman architecture where they learned how to carry loads, to have big roofs, and that's when those religions were really taking off. So it's kind of fascinating to see the different architectures of churches, and it comes with that ethnic group where that religion started from and where it diffused to somewhere else. Okay.
Universalizing religion. So we said universalizing and ethnic are two big categories. So universalizing, they have missionaries. They need to gain converts. And so the bubbles here show us the hearth, where the religion began, and then the arrows show us sort of where they diffused. So if you look over here at Buddhism, you can see right around Nepal. It spreads down here into India, but mostly it gets run, the people of India practice Hinduism, and Buddhism spreads more to the east, okay? So that's why you find it a little bit more in China. You're gonna find it in Japan, in Korea, and then in Thailand. Over here, you see Christianity, the hearth right here, that would be Israel, okay? And then it spreads up into Europe, and then once it gets into Europe, they show the way that it diffuses, right? So think about different forms of diffusion. Hopefully as we're going through these videos, you guys are seeing how certain themes overlap, right? So we've talked about diffusion in the first video we did. Well, how do these religions spread? Well, contagious diffusion would be an example, right? So someone gets preached to, or they accept a new religion, and boom, now they start practicing that religion. That would be contagious diffusion. Okay, relocation diffusion would be another one, right? So as Christianity spreads up into Europe, okay, now there's new practitioners there. Okay, the other thing that this one's showing you is where there's overlap. Okay, and you can see there's a lot of overlap here in Africa, and that would be examples of, territorial disputes. Okay, if you think about it, if you're both missionizing and you're speaking and you're preaching, having different sort of ideologies, that could cause some tension, right? And everybody's competing over the same people that they want to bring to their God, or win to their, idea of what heaven should be like. Okay. So this one is early diffusion of Christianity, and you can see this would be Paul, right? And those of you who are Christian, maybe you've been to church and you were looking in the back of the book and you're like, oh, there's maps back here, okay? And what you notice is these are all the journeys of Paul. So I think it's a book of Acts. There's a couple other books where it talks about Paul's journey, and what he's doing is he's spreading the word via contagious diffusion, right, and relocation diffusion as he's moving around, okay? This also gets spread via hierarchical diffusion. So remember we talked about Constantine earlier. Before Constantine, they would hang Christians here, okay, in the Roman Empire. Okay, it was a very much an underground religion. It was forbidden, okay, until Constantine, and then Constantine allows it, and then Theodosius, his successor, says you have to practice this. Well, he's trying to get everyone to practice it because you have unity, you have strength in numbers, and what he does is he allows a lot of the pagan religions to just sort of keep some of their customs. So we threw out a little Easter egg to you, right, trying to talk about where is the origin of why do we have eggs from rabbits at Easter, and where that comes from is from this overlap of Christianity, okay, and in certain provinces in the outskirts, they were still worshiping rabbits during the springtime, okay, so rabbits would procreate, right? You heard like people having babies like rabbits, okay, because they have a lot of children. So, in the older times, they would worship the rabbit. That would be a fertility, and it was a fertility god. And then we incorporated that eventually into Easter. So, did I do that right? Yeah.
Good.
Anything you'd add?
Say,
where does the egg come from? The Cadbury bunny. I don't know.
The irony is that the apostles, the outlawed apostles, spread the word on the Roman roads. Romans built good roads.
Made it easier to travel, right? And get that word spread around. Awesome. Okay. We've also talked a little bit about the diffusion of Islam. Same type of thing, right? Contagious diffusion, relocation diffusion. You'll learn more about this next year in AP World as well. But early on, it spread in a very militaristic type of way. Okay, so they had a strong military, tons of inventions that the Muslims had created, but a very, very strong military. And so they forced people to convert at first. And then they actually charged a tax on people who weren't Muslim. Okay. Well, what they found was that wasn't working very well. They weren't gaining a lot of converts. They're like, we can't figure this out. And so what they did is instead they decided to. It says that saying that you catch more flies with honey, right, than vinegar. And so what they did was they switched the tax, and they said, okay, well, you don't have to pay this tax anymore. And in fact, what we'll do is we'll start trading with you. And much of Islam really starts to grow once they make that fundamental shift and they start to trade with all these various places. Okay? And you can see the spread of the Islamic empire.
This one, you're kind of like, what the heck? Why are the Christians moving so much? Well, think about who are the people that colonized, who are the people that are into international business, international trade, and where do people want to come to? So a lot of people are coming to Europe and North America, and if they're already Christian in the place they're at, they're going to not only see economic opportunity, but they also feel comfort in going there because, I'm already a Christian. So you can see a lot of, more people that are Christian migrate. You can see it growing with Muslims, all right? And you had trade to a lot of places, but you see people coming to Europe and North America also. And then you get into the smaller ones, there's a lot of Hindus. There's like almost 1 billion Hindus. But remember we talked about how they're very comfortable staying there? These are the ones we're getting that are coming as software engineers. All right. And then same thing over here in East Asia, people coming over from there, and a lot of them are migrating to North America and Europe for economic opportunities. Okay. And you can see migration of Christians, where they're going. They're going to places that have a big Christian population, and they're comfortable with it. And like we said, they're usually economic migrants. You'd think, oh, they're coming for religious freedom. I would say more religious comfort, that they're comfortable there. All right? Okay. And then here we see origin and destination of Christian migrants. Here you see Europe and North America are the popular ones. I think you have to make an economic connection there.
We're talking about distribution of migrants, and Mr. Wright was talking about how different ethnic, or sorry, not ethnic, but religious groups are migrating. And so you can see here that many Muslim groups are migrating to majority Muslim countries. Okay, so that's where the majority of their migration is. If you think about customs, traditions, if you're moving from a predominantly Muslim country to another predominantly Muslim country, it's not going to be as big a shift for you. Okay, there might be some cultural things, there might be some language things, but there's going to be a lot of the same kinds of beliefs, a lot of the same kinds of practices. Okay, let's see. And then it says there's a large flows of Muslims into Christian majority Europe. So you can see here from Northern Africa, these used to be French colonies. And so as people are leaving these poorer North African countries, they're coming up here to their former colonizers, where they'll be comfortable with some of the customs, traditions, and languages. And then they're finding, jobs, okay? Same kind of thing from Germany. So the Muslims who are moving from from Turkey, now I'm doing it, they used to be part of the Ottoman Empire, and they're going to Germany. How much time we got?
You got plenty of time, but make that connection between Germany and Ottoman Empire being on the same side.
Okay, so World War I.
Right.
Yes. So World War I, I'd really like to go to the bigger map because you really can't see it very well here. But during World War I, Germany and the Ottoman Empire fought on the same side. The Russians and the Serbians were on the same side. And so what you'll learn again next year in AP World is that's part of what causes the war, okay, is all these alliances and people get drug into it. And so even since World War I, there's this cultural connection.
But the irony, if you look at Germany, you're like, what are Turks doing in Germany? What connection do they have? It goes back to that World War I connection. And then after World War I, the Turks looked to Germany, hey, how do we set up a modern country?
Yeah, help us out here, right? And so that's early 1900s, that connection's been going on. All right, now how are we doing on time?
Minute and a half.
Okay, so this pie chart is interesting because it shows us the story of Israel. So you can see here in 1910, the majority of people, Jewish population, an ethnic religion, okay, is in Russia and in Europe. So this goes way back to the Jewish diaspora. I don't know if you can see me over here.
Yes.
Okay, so Roman Empire, the Jews are blamed for killing Jesus, okay? And once the Roman Empire goes completely Christian, they kick the Jews out, which puts them up into Europe, okay? And so you can see in that first pie chart, there's a lot of Russians. They have pogroms. They are persecuted up here. You guys all know about the Holocaust that happens during World War II, okay? And then post-World War II, they create the state of Israel. And so if you go back over here, you can see that a large number of Jewish followers or adherents are in their home state of Israel. Okay? And then another large group in the United States. We took a lot of Jews in after the Holocaust, okay, into the U.S.